Hello everybody, I have an orchid here that is in almost full bloom that I would like to feature. It is called Dimeranda Stenopetala. I'm not sure if I pronounced that name correctly. And it's I've had this plant I guess almost a year now, or maybe a year. It looks weedy at first, but now that I've had it a little longer and through the summer, it's blooming very beautifully for me, and it's becoming one of my favorite. So this orchid is naturally in the Central and South American countries such as Mexico, Belize, Panama, New Guinea, all that area. Very hot and humid weather. It loves that. And I'm in zone 9, so it does pretty well over here. I do need to bring it indoor in the winter, of course. It looks like it has a growth habit of a dendrobium in that it has these canes. However, the canes are not very tough and not very thick like a normal dendrobium would be. And let's see, it's more reed-like, R-E-E-D, reed-like. And it does love bright light. However, I've done some research on the internet, and some growers have recommended that it's more, it prefers more shade than bright light. But I grow it outdoors, and I give it direct morning light and very bright light in general. And sometimes I give it almost early morning sunlight as well, direct sunlight like noon, 1 to 2 o'clock, especially in the fall or spring, but not in the heat of the summer like in August and July. Let's see what else. So my plant, let's see, my particular orchid here is it's taller than a foot. I would say 15 inches tall. And I think it gets much bigger. It tends to, I've noticed that it gets bushier when it has more bright light versus when it's grown in a shadier area. It just gets taller. Also, the canes, when it's exposed to more bright light, the canes tend to have this beautiful dark red tint to it, or speckle to it. And let me see. So right now it's in the fall for me, and I don't have it in bright direct sunlight, just indirect. So you would be able to see the tint of these canes, dark red. Now it's just dark, like let me see if I can get closer. So now it looks like it's brown, and it looks like it's dying, but it's actually not. When you touch the cane itself, it's very turgid and very stiff. So it's actually pretty healthy. And the way it grows is really neat, where the blooms come from. So let me show you the oldest cane I have, and that would give a good example of the growth habit and the bloom habit. So this particular cane is, I think it's the biggest cane. I am not sure if it is the oldest cane, but it is the tallest and biggest in size. So up here you will see the cane, and then you will see the inflorescence, and there's multiple. Okay, so this one, I think it's a keiki right here where my thumb is, And then you have an inflorescence. So you would have, let me see if I can use my tag here to identify how many bloom spikes there are. So there's one here, there's one here, there's another one here, and there's another one here. Let me see if I can spin it around and it would help. It's hard to film when you're talking at the same time because you're looking through your camera and looking at the orchid directly. You get disoriented a little bit. So this is one of the lower inflorescence, and it looks like, oops. So all these, let me show you what it looks like when it's a new bloom. So it's a sequential bloomer, and I think out of this inflorescence, for instance, I'm going to show you, let's see. So you have this bloom right here. After that bloom is done, I think that will become the next bloom right there. And on this one, here's the inflorescence. Here's the, I don't know if it's really called an inflorescence, but it's just a little bloom sticking out. So you get this flower, okay, that I'm pointing at. And then this is the new bud right there where I'm pointing. And I'm actually putting a white background so you can see it better. But that is the new bud, the new flower bud that comes after this one. And I've seen where you can get 4 times blooming. You get four flowers out of each, what do you call it, in a fluorescence. So, let's see. So this is, I would say, this is probably the original apical, and it has, so this would be an old bloom right here. See, this right here would be an old bloom. And then this was the sequence onward. And I don't see another one, but that doesn't mean it didn't have more than 2 blooms on there. Now this one is the latest one on the apical, and it might be because it branched out from the tip of the old bloom right up here. And so you get this bloom that's going on right now. Hello. And then you get this right afterwards, right there. See that little nubby sticking out? And so that, it looks like I still have quite a, some more time on it. And the bloom is actually quite long lasting. It's, I want to say 3 weeks, maybe longer now that it's not summer. And let's see, so I'm assuming this is a keiki. Oh my goodness, look at that. Okay, so I think this is a new bloom coming up. Let me see if I can get closer. Can you see the center of that? Sorry, I keep wobbling. But the center of that is going to be sending off a new bloom right there. So it's amazing. It is a very high producing plant, a high producing orchid. It's and that's why it's just, I guess, I'm loving it for that reason. So, okay, so let me go back down here and show you a bloom that came off of a tiny little growth, and I'm surprised. Even such a little cane like this one is giving a bloom. So that one, it did have an old bloom on there, and now here's another one, and I don't spot another one yet. Sometime it takes some time for a new growth to come back up, but this has been a continuous bloomer for me since this summer. And you know what's nice about this too, it's also a very fast-paced grower. It's this is another new cane that I have right here, And another new one, and yet it is new November. And I'm still getting new growth. This is a growth from this summer, right here. And it is already a good 6 inches tall, just the new growth from this summer. And let's see. So as the canes get older, you get this, you get leaves, you know, coming, falling off of it. And then you get a dark cane like this, and it becomes more flower productive, believe it or not, as it gets older. And I'm not sure how long the canes live, each of these canes, but I have a good feeling it's a long survivor. What's nice about it, you don't have to stake it. It normally is just stiff, you know, and erect on its own. You don't need to stake it, so that's another plus about these this orchid. I do fertilize it. I normally give it liquid fertilizer, but just today I decided I would put some what do you call, slow release fertilizer. You can see some in there. It's mostly potted in sphagnum moss and some bark, from some large size bark at the bottom for drainage. I don't get many problems from this Dimeranda. However, I do know that it does get spider mites. It tends to get spider mites when you grow it indoor or where there's low, what do you call, low humidity or low wind, low, what do you call it, air movement. And I've read somewhere else too, someone had pointed out that on the internet, on a blog, that they tend to get spider mites if you are growing it indoors. Let me see anything else. It's just a lovely, it looks weedy when you don't have any flowers, as you can imagine, you know, and it's not typical of a an orchid. You don't normally see this spiky plant or reed looking plant, but this is a very lovely orchid. It does love lots of water, lots of moisture. It looks, I think it may be partially from a epidendrum family, and maybe some Lilea as well. Let's see if there's anything else that I want to tell you about this. Now it's, I've read somewhere that it blooms between August to November, but for me it has bloomed all summer, starting in maybe even May, June, July, and it keeps on going. And I doubt that this will stop in November. I have so many new blooms from it just recently. I think right now, I'm thinking it has just, the peak of the blooms has just begun.